Glastonbury, located in Somerset, southwest England, is often considered the heart chakra of the planet and ranks among the most spiritually significant places in the world. This area has been sacred long before the dawn of recorded history. Ancient Celtic religious leaders performed rituals here, and legends speak of tunnels leading into the realms of elves and fairies. According to Arthurian mythology, it is believed to be the Isle of Avalon, the resting place of Excalibur. Additionally, Glastonbury is associated with legends surrounding the Philosopher's Stone and the Holy Grail linked to Jesus. It is even known as a site for UFO sightings. If you have a spiritual inclination, a visit to Glastonbury is a must. Among the top attractions, Glastonbury Abbey, Chalice Well, and Glastonbury Tor immediately come to mind, and these can be comfortably explored in a day trip. However, for those seeking a deeper immersion into the essence of Glastonbury, there are numerous other sites within the town that warrant exploration. Personally, I spent 2 days in Glastonbury in June 2018 and did not manage to visit all the sites that I will be mentioning in this video. Things have become more accessible now with the establishment of the Glastonbury Way in 2021. This route offers a 7.5-mile walk in the shape of an infinity sign starting and ending at Glastonbury Town Centre, covering nearly all the major sites and can be completed in a single day. However, if you plan to explore all these sites, or at least most of them, I recommend allocating at least 2 to 3 days. This will allow you to avoid feeling rushed and provide ample time for meditation and contemplation at some of the more significant locations. Let's embark on a virtual journey along the Glastonbury Way. Begin your journey at the Goddess Temple, the first formally recognized space dedicated to the worship of the indigenous British goddess in all of her many forms for at least 1,500 years. Here, you can light a candle and sit in stillness. Nearby, you'll find St. Margaret's Chapel, dedicated to female saints such as St. Margaret and St. Mary Magdalene. The peace here is palpable, and it's recommended to spend 20 minutes in meditation. Afterward, take a moment to explore the lovely garden lined with almshouses just outside the chapel. The next destination is Weary All Hill, named after the moment when Joseph of Arimathea, upon arriving in Glastonbury, thrust his pilgrim staff into the ground and said to his companions, "Friends, we are weary all." His staff, believed to have been made from the wood of the cross on which Jesus was crucified, miraculously grew into a thorn tree known as the Levantine hawthorn, Crataegus monogyna precox. Remarkably, the tree bloomed twice a year, once in May during Easter and again at Christmas. For over 100 years, a sprig from this tree was sent to the Queen for her table. Unfortunately, the original tree was vandalized in 2010 and 2019, but it continues to live on through its cuttings. Weary All Hill is said to resemble the shape of a fish, leading some to call it the Salmon of Wisdom or the King Fisherman's Castle, he who protects the Grail. Your next stop is Bride's Mound, located on the River Brue, also known as the Western Gateway to Avalon or Beckery, Little Ireland. For those acquainted with Arthurian legends, Beckery was the site of the Mary Magdalene Chapel, which King Arthur was instructed to visit in a dream. While there, he experienced a radiant vision of the Virgin Mary and the Christ child. This inspired King Arthur to exchange his red dragon emblem for a cross set against a lush green background. It is also near the spot where Excalibur was returned to the Lady of the Lake. The name Bride's Mound is derived from Saint Bridget of Kildare, a Catholic saint associated with fire, water, and the color white, who is said to have visited this site in 488 AD before returning to and passing away in Ireland. Saint Bridget is likely also linked to the pagan Celtic goddess Bride, the guardian of springs and wells. The feast day for both is celebrated on February 1st, marking the transition from winter to spring. Saint Bridget's second-class relics, including a bell and spindle, were once displayed in a chapel here, now sadly in ruins. This site was where pilgrims would traditionally stay the night before their final trek into Glastonbury. Pilgrims seeking healing have long practiced a ritual that continues to this day. They would remove their bandages, dip them in the holy water of sacred wells, and tie a small piece to a nearby tree, known as a clootie tree. The healing was believed to be complete once the rag disintegrated, with the hanging cloth considered a perpetual prayer in the meantime. This practice bears some similarity to the Buddhist tradition of hanging brightly colored prayer flags, often imprinted with the image of the lung ta, or wind horse, at sacred sites and around stupas, reliquaries. The wind horses are believed to carry prayers to the gods and deities. To avoid leaving a trace, it is recommended to offer a song here instead. St. Bride's Mound is also regarded as one of the thin places between worlds. This term, rooted in Celtic spirituality, refers to sacred spaces where the boundary between heaven and earth is especially narrow. From the mound, you can follow the River Brue to walk back toward the town centre. Along the way, you'll encounter the best living descendant of the original Weary Holy Thorn, which now grows in front of the main west door of St. Benedict's Church. Next, visit St. John the Baptist Church, whose feast day is celebrated on June 24th. Here, you'll find the scallop shell, a symbol of pilgrimage, prominently featured in the church's iconography and baptismal fonts. Additionally, the garden features a 7-circuit Glastonbury tercentennial labyrinth. Pause in the center to experience a sense of peace and balance. At each of the sharp turns in the labyrinth, there are 4 carvings for reflection: the Virgin Mary with a 5-petaled rose, Saint Bridget with a Celtic harp, Saint Dunstan with his harp, and Joseph of Arimathea with the Holy Thorn. After walking back to the High Street, make your way around the mini valley of Bushy Coombe. Continue over the crest of Wick Hollow and descend Paradise Lane, where you'll be treated to panoramic views of the Somerset Levels and Wells Cathedral. Eventually, you'll arrive at the Gog and Magog trees, named after a biblical figure, Gog, and his land, Magog, as well as the giants who battled the Trojan king Brutus, the founder of Britain. Here, they are represented as an old male and female oak tree that may have once marked the beginning of an oak tree procession leading to the Tor. Unfortunately, Gog was severely damaged in 2017 by a fire, likely caused by a candle. People come here seeking guidance, asking a question to either tree, or both, while making physical contact. You might receive an answer as a feeling in your heart. Be aware that the response may take some time, possibly a few days, depending on the processing speed of the tree's consciousness. It's finally time to ascend the hill and follow the processional avenue to the Tor. Tor means a peak or hill. Glastonbury Tor is arguably the most significant spiritual site in the area. It has been described as a magic mountain, a fairy's glass hill, a spiral castle, a grail castle, the land of the dead, Hades, a druid initiation center, an Arthurian hill fort, a magnetic power point, a crossroad of energy lines, a UFO convergence point, and a site of goddess fertility rituals and celebrations. Additionally, as I mentioned in my previous video on the Black Madonna and the Terran Lux grid, beneath Glastonbury Tor lies the vibrational presence of a being known as Torhana. Torhana is an Egyptian Atlantean priestess whose body rests in a suspended state beneath the Tor, existing in a dimension slightly different from our own. She is said to hold the original divine feminine DNA blueprint, the Grail, for Earth. Viewed from above, the Tor resembles a vulva, making it a natural symbol of feminine energy. The land surrounding the Tor was once watery fenland, so the Tor itself would have been an island. The area was referred to as Isle of Avalon, suggesting it might be the Avalon of myth, the Isle of Apples. Surrounding the Tor is the Glastonbury Zodiac. Dr. John Dee, the renowned magician, seer, and astrologer to Queen Elizabeth I, was reputedly the first to propose that the celestial zodiac is represented in the sacred land around Glastonbury. Several hundred years later, Catherine Maltwood, an artist and scholar who lived in Somerset, expanded on this idea. Born in 1878, Catherine claimed in 1929 that the outlines of the astrological zodiac were traceable in various earthworks within a 10-mile radius around Glastonbury. She published her findings in the book The High History of the Holy Grail. Using large-scale Ordnance Survey maps, she initially identified the shape of Leo the lion and, in the 1930s, commissioned aerial photographs of the entire area. Today, the concept of the Glastonbury zodiac is viewed by some as fact and by others as imaginative speculation. To ascend the Tor, there are two options. The easier route is to walk up the pilgrim's path along the tour's spine towards St. Michael's Tower at the summit. Alternatively, you can undertake a circumambulation via the spiral path, which takes about 5 hours to complete. If you choose this option, it is recommended to hire a guide, such as Tours of the Tour. The spiral path that winds from the base to the summit forms 7 terraces. This path likely served a purpose similar to the steps or paths found at other sacred sites with multiple levels of ascent, with the 7 levels corresponding to the 7 planets known to ancient peoples, each associated with a deity. This is also similar to the 7 levels of the ziggurat. Before exploring St. Michael's Tower at the top of the Tor, locate the megalithic egg stone, also known as the omphalos, halfway up the Tor, just below the summit. This is one of 2 egg stones in Glastonbury, the other is located behind the abbot's kitchen at the abbey, where it features a hollowed cavity or eye. Once you find the egg stone, take a moment to sit on it. Some believe the stone was placed by a dragon, others say it vibrates with the sun's energy at dawn and absorbs its last rays at dusk, and some even think it serves as a portal to an underworld realm ruled by the fairy king, Gwyn ap Nudd. Finally, at the top of the Tor, you will encounter St. Michael's Tower. This tower is a nexus of many ley lines, specifically forming part of the St. Michael's ley line, a series of towers originally consecrated to the Celtic god Lugh but later dedicated to Archangel Michael, stretching from Cornwall to the Suffolk coast. The St. Michael's ley line includes St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall and Mont St. Michel in Brittany. Originally, a 5th century fort stood on this site, which was later replaced by a medieval church, St. Michael's. This church remained until 1275, when it was destroyed by an earthquake. About 80 years later, the church was rebuilt but was eventually demolished during the dissolution of the monasteries. Afterward, the tower was used for executions, and the last abbot of Glastonbury Abbey was hanged there. Today, only the roofless ruin of the tower remains. Above the doorway of the tower, you can see stone carvings of St. Michael on the left and St. Bridget milking a cow on the right. When you make your way down from the Tor, you'll come to the Chalice Well and its World Peace Garden, another significant spiritual site in Glastonbury. The Chalice Well, built in the 12th century, is fed by the Red Spring and is reputed to be the resting place of the Holy Grail. Another theory suggests that the Holy Grail is buried under the Tor, making it the source of the Red Spring. The Holy Grail, brought by Joseph of Arimathea, is said to be the chalice used during the Last Supper to catch the blood of Jesus from the cross. The Red Spring has never failed to flow, even during the severest droughts. Unsurprisingly, miraculous cures have been attributed to this water, which you can obtain from the Lion's Head Fountain. Take a moment to appreciate the beautiful garden, which is designed with sacred geometry in mind. For example, the design motif on the well cover is the Vesica piscis, an ancient pre-Christian symbol that evolved into the Christian fish. It represents the blending of masculine and feminine, the yin and yang, and the meeting place of the conscious and unconscious. Twice daily, a bell is rung, inviting visitors to pause in silence for a while. Opposite Chalice Well is the White Spring, so called due to its high calcite content, just as the Red Spring is colored by iron. The Red Spring and White Spring represent masculine and feminine aspects, respectively. Mixing the waters from these two springs creates a healing elixir. In the well house that contains the White Spring, you can find shrines to Bridget, Our Lady of Avalon, and the King of Faery. Inside the well house, there are immersion pools where one can bathe, and altars in the 4 corners of the cave where pilgrims are welcome to make offerings. Note that the White Spring is only open at select times, 1:30 to 4:30 p.m. every day except Wednesdays and Thursdays. If you miss the opening hours, there's access to the water through a pipe in the wall. Now, make your way to Glastonbury Abbey, said to be on the site of the first above-ground church in all of Christendom and the oldest religious foundation in Britain. According to legend, Joseph of Arimathea, whom I believe to be Jesus' uncle, Mother Mary's brother, was a trader in metals during the 1st century AD. He made regular expeditions from the eastern Mediterranean, landing in Cornwall and travelling up to Somerset, where lead was mined in the Mendip Hills. On one such voyage, he brought a teenage Jesus with him. After the crucifixion, Joseph of Arimathea first travelled to Gaul, modern-day France, and then to Britain, where he landed on St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall, linking the two sites, in 37 AD with the Apostle Philip. Together, they established the first church on the site which would eventually become Glastonbury Abbey. Joseph also brought with him a staff that was a piece of the cross, as well as the Holy Grail. The abbey itself was built on top of the original church in 705 AD, established by 12 priests who were all choristers. It became one of 3 churches with a perpetual choir, chanting day and night. Notable visitors to the abbey include St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, who is said to have visited in 443, and St. David, the patron saint of Wales. St. Dunstan was appointed abbot around 943 and was reputed to have resisted the devil's temptations by grabbing his nose with a pair of blazing hot pincers. The abbey eventually closed in 1539 when its last abbot was hanged. It then fell into neglect and obscurity until it was rediscovered in the 20th century by archaeologist Frederick Bligh Bond, 1864–1945, who uncovered 2 lost chapels. Bligh Bond was also a firm believer in paranormal matters. From 1907 to 1917, he engaged a medium to communicate with deceased former monks of Glastonbury Abbey to seek assistance with excavations at the site, an effort that yielded a series of texts known as the Glastonbury scripts. He also discovered that the abbey's builders had used the ancient science of gematria, translating letters into numbers, and that the ground plans of Stonehenge and Glastonbury Abbey are uncannily similar. In 1191, one of the most significant events in the abbey's history occurred when the monks unearthed an oak coffin between 2 great stone pyramids with a leaden plaque stating, "Here lies buried the glorious King Arthur and Guinevere, his second wife, in the Isle of Avalon." Folklore surrounding the legendary King Arthur dates to the 5th or 6th century AD. Arthur and his knights, of course, embarked on a quest for the Holy Grail. Moreover, Glastonbury had long been identified as the Isle of Avalon, where Arthur was taken after being mortally wounded at the Battle of Camlan. Thus, it's perhaps no surprise that his tomb was eventually discovered here. Visiting their tomb marks the end of the Glastonbury Way. To conclude your visit to Glastonbury, be sure to spend some time wandering through Glastonbury High Street, where you'll find an abundance of spiritual wares, ranging from crystals to spiritual books, as well as all kinds of vegetarian and vegan food. The stores reflect the eclectic group of spiritual seekers drawn to Glastonbury's energies, including druids and dowsers, witches and trance dancers, pagans and green man followers, Buddhists and goddess devotees, Sufis and Christian mystics, karmic astrologers and sea princess worshippers, alchemists and healers.